Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April installment of Carmine Street Metrics. Really delighted to see everyone today, even on this beautiful spring day. At least it is beautiful in this area here. So thanks for spending a couple of hours of the afternoon, or the Sunday afternoon with us. Really excited about our feature readers, Nicole Caruso Garcia and Moira Egan. And at this time, I'm going to start with the open mic. Our first open mic reader will be Myles. Anne, can you please unmute yourself?
Hi, thank you for having me. This is my first time reading here. I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. My full-length manuscript, late epistle, was selected by Meriam, who's trying to connect and I think having difficulties for Sappho's Prize in Poetry, and will be coming out in August from Headmistress Press. And Moira is writing one of my blurbs. So I guess that's enough. I write both in and out of form and meter. So I'm gonna read one poem in form that's from late epistle. It's called Immersion. 10 now, we glided on the frozen lake, my friend and I. Why were there no adults? Our ankles wobbled on wind-rippled tumult. Far off near shore, I saw the pool of black. Come on, let's go see the clear ice, I called, eager for that difference, slick and dark, a lens where you could see down to the muck, depths dizzying green in summer, another world, now crystalline, unmoving, leaf-steeped brown. But the ice was dark from being barely frozen, coming first to it in a moment I was in. No ground beneath, I treaded water, somehow half calm and almost warm in my wool coat, as in the odd suspension of a dream. The edge broke beneath my arms until it seemed it would never hold. It did. She hauled me out. A change of clothes and I went on. Yet now I think of chill lassitude and slowing breath, perhaps the closest time I skirted death, but strangely harmless still. What lies below is what persists, as if this life is what was meant, how something never planned would open wide, immersing me within the stinging cold of some foreign, deep, and penetrating element. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne. Hopefully we'll see you again. Next up on my reader is Christopher Bogart.
Okay. I'm sorry, just let me get the poem out. This poem that I'm going to read, excuse me, is it's a poem from a book of poetry that came out a year ago called This Conversation, which is a conversation between two white men in a bar talking about race. And this poem is called Skin in the Game. And I think this might be the first time I'm at Carmine Street Metric. So I picked a poem that is a form poem. This is a villanelle, and it's called Skin in the Game. If only we could share another's skin and see life through their eyes for just one day, we'd realize we're so much more than kin. We'd only need one drop of melanin to understand what life is like as they. If only we could share another's skin. One day, one drop for every citizen in every town across the USA would make us realize we're more than kin. We'd learn at least that white's not sovereign, but equal to all colors on that day. If only we could share another's skin. They've paid the price in suffering for our sin. Their generations watched their dreams delayed until we learn we're so much more than kin. It's time for us to finally welcome in our kin of color, cast so far away. If only we could share another skin, would understand we're so much more than kin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next open mic reader is Marjorie Maddox.
Thank you, Anton. And if possible, I'm going to share my screen. So we'll see. Oops. It says disabled participant screen sharing. So
it should work now. Try again. I just changed it.
Okay. Good. Because I wanted you to see just these images, as Anton was saying earlier, my book with my daughter, primarily with my daughter and also a number of other artists, is coming out on Mother's Day. My daughter is 26, so I'm excited about this collaboration. There was also images by Greg Mort, Margaret Munch-Lash, Ingo Swan, and several other artists. But I'm going to read one of there's a lot of foreign poems in this collection. And here's the artist statement for Annalie, my daughter's more abstract painting, the letter E, and you can see it's kind of a whirlwind. And then I don't know how closely you can see, but there are a lot of E's around the edge. The letter E is a painting that questions how we absorb new information. This piece was inspired by a child penalized for asking a brilliant, creative, out-of-the-box question in class, while the focus of the day was the letter E. So this is for all the teachers out there, I suppose. A light poem that's serious underneath. The letter E. Don't distract me with questions, those extraneous detours that topple learning. E and only E is today's lesson. The enemy of schedule is curiosity, omissions necessary for well-paced delivery. We yearn for no distractions. Don't ask me questions, time-wasting, silly digressions of how and why. Pay attention. Our concern is E and only E. Today's lesson is letter 5. Your inquisitive obsessions are enemies of order. Don't ruin class by distracting me with questions. Creativity's the one transgression I won't allow. Sit still, don't squirm. E and only E is today's lesson. Up next, the letter F. Natural progression of learning. Quiet, it's not your turn to talk. Don't distract me with questions. E and only E is today's lesson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marjorie. Back-to-back two villanelles today. Okay, our next open mic reader is Bill Considine, William Considine.
Thank you, Anton. I'm going to read a sonnet called The Night Watch. In a storage room, rummaging through twig lights, a hopeful, spirited old woman finds records of the night watch, minutes of their fights to wake the buried, break, and rule minds. The night watch worship at a dark altar, piled on high, with regrets, forebodings, fears. Crushed and lost in disarray, I falter and stammer reasons back at taunting jeers. At first, the woman foresees a new day, piled on high, exposed by her search and raised with bold hands. The light of her lamps will show all the way. The night watch clock out. Their data's so old, the system crashes, but roving, smirking bands reboot with wild tales they scream must be told. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce our first feature reader, Nicole Caruso Garcia. Nicole Caruso Garcia's first full-length debut poetry collection is Oxblood from Able Muse Press, which was named the finalist for the Able Muse Book Award and the Richard Wilbur Award. Her work appears on Best New Poets, Light, Mezzocamin, Bloom, Rattle, Rhino, and elsewhere. She serves as the Associate Poetry Editor at Able Muse and as an Executive Board Member at Poetry by the Sea, an annual poetry conference in Madison, Connecticut that I know some of you will be attending, including me, and looking forward to seeing many of you in person. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me today, Wendy and Anton. I'm very glad to be here sharing from my book, Exploit. And I have 6 poems I think, for you today. The first one is called Appraisal. Appraisal. Once raped, you wear it daily. Learn to see the cut, the color, clarity, and carat. Each time you try to square asymmetry, it cleaves, reveals another jagged facet. Fool, you think it fits inside one poem. No. Map with calipers and microscope your story since you came to wear that stone. Flawed and heart-shaped, bluer than the hope. Since you must wear it, hone it with precision. Leave your wrists unslit, the blood unbled, to cut and polish sin to scintillation. Woman, rise up from the rhinestone dead. Yet what can cut a diamond? Nothing can, except the hardest substance known to man. The next poem is dedicated to Dr. Leslie Goldstone Orley, who happens to be my gynecologist. And I was happy when the book was eventually published and I could actually hand her the book and say, this is the book that has the poem that I wrote for you. The poem is called, Have You Ever Been a Victim of Violence? 11 Reasons Why I Don't Check Yes. Because the box, once X'd, can't be undone. Because to check the box is like a sadder version of I voted. Because I'll disappoint my angel of a gynecologist. She'll ask me when, and see I've kept the truth from her for years. Because, damn it, I resent the box just waiting there to ambush me again. Because I bristle at the label victim and survivor can't win, both dice are loaded. Because the waiting room is Starbucks busy. Because the box is no confessional. Because there is no exorcist on staff. Because don't ask me to concede a thing when it's already such a feet in stirrups, flashlight on my cervix kind of day. Because of women wearing crowns of thorns far thornier than mine. Because what grit I've got, I ration. Ghost ship. At a distance, candles guttering can look like party lights, the way a ghost ship might seem from shore. It may have seemed I was carousing. It may have hurt you, seeing my illuminated decks my painted flags livened by wind. Despair is so immaculate a plague. A healthy vessel still will float, although you pillaged all the spirit from its hold. A ship like that may run aground or wreck against the cliffs, adrift between the quick and the dead. It is not sorry, does not love or hate. It lists. The next poem is called Dear Reader, and it has an epigraph from Roland Barthes, The Pleasure of the Text. Is not the most erotic portion of the body where the garment gapes, the intermittence of skin flashing between two articles of clothing, between two edges. It is this flash itself which seduces. Dear reader, you come to hear me come undone. The diction taut, then loose from my chameleon tongue. You sometimes wonder if it's fact, the friction of my lover's stubble where I'm stung. You gape at what the gaping might expose. What will my inky fingerprints betray? I lie sincerely. My words conceal, disclose, no more, no less than paint or bronze, clay. Yet what I thought was simply ink grows thick and hardens, forged like opalescent stone or bee-flecked amber, set in a mosaic I can't stop. In truth, I'm not just shown in dishabille. However crude or sacred, soon all I've offered God to you lies naked. To the undertaker. Undertaker, I have sought you. Hover close above. My overtaker, faith shaker, was the man I loved. Sew my useless jaw together. Drain my blood's scant volume. He moved as though my lips were stitched by all the days I'd loved him. Your devotion lasts 2 hours. Tend and wash my body. In merely minutes, he had made unholy Holy Friday. Fill me with your reeking fluid, harsh, but not unkind. Preserve my body with your proof. His petrified my mind. Pack my cavities with gauze. Make pretty perjury. I thought I was a woman loved. I am an effigy. Paint my face so lifelike, they will marvel at my charms. Who's that makeup for? He asked. Gawkers now. And worms. O gentlemen of more respect, lay coins upon my eyes. He made me lesser than a whore, staked claim between my thighs. I was his would-be wife, and still you dress me for the church. A gown of silken muslin for a carcass with no worth. And the last poem I have for you today is called I Never Fell in Love with You. and it's dedicated to my husband, Carlos. I never fell in love with you. To fall in love implies a lack of choice, as if I were cartoonish, maladroit, and love, an open manhole to avoid. To fall suggests a kind of loftiness, that I began in some exalted place and not the airy of my loneliness. To fall like rain or tears or Mercury, a pawn of Cupid or of gravity. No, with my grappling hook, I climbed precisely. To fall, kerplunk, is stumbling, imperfection. No, I would brave the hot tar of rejection to wear the ermine cloak of your affection. I built a trebuchet and aimed to sail beyond your moat, over your castle wall. I launched, I soared in love. I did not fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Nicole. Thank you for this powerful, devastating, really important poem. Thank you for your courage reading them. Fantastic performance. We can everyone please unmute yourselves if you'd like to applaud and express gratitude for to Nicole for her wonderful reading.
Hey, Nicole.
Wow.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Terrific.
Nicole.
It's really terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next open mic reader is Alex Pepple.
Well, thank you, everyone. Nicole, what a wonderful reading. Just wonderful. And now I will read something sort of newish because I haven't read it before. So I hope it comes out well enough being performed like this. This is called How Are You? So, okay, here goes. How are you? Comes the reflex, I'm fine. And then, thank you applied for punctuation. I think, employ something different, like Robert, whose answer was awful. His company janitor, handyman, awful yet, can still stride and waddle down the corridor. Pendulum arms, the fluorescent lights sparkling right, his teeth exposed in the silly green, as if I did bring him fresh air with sun and cheer. I wish I'd be as much all charms when in the grips of awfulness. We could deadpan like Clara, answered, I'm mad. Stroll into my office, rolling a file cabinet-sized garbage bin slow, and talks of Jesse, the company's night watchman, who'd made himself unilaterally her night superior, forgetting that she has her own boss for her agency's contract. Which areas to clean, from when to when. And so mad about last night, invisible at the catered party, headache of non-stop demands. I like my work, but I like it even better when people in power aren't acting so mean. I wish I were able to make ends meet with little like Clara. Office grief can't always be shredded. The CEO recycled grief and passed it around like companies' magnetic badges. $1 million in bonuses accrued from transplants in willy-nilly recycles. We sit for one last time, all in the cafeteria, our first time without the fear of missed deadlines. We feast the more in a common menu of misery. The ton of new friendships we managed to reap. There's still syrup for the Coke machine to toast each other's personal deadlines and factor out severance pay versus mortgage. Roger at the front desk answers like a cherub. Almost all right. I verily answer thus from here on when quizzed, how are you? Now Roger is night watchman too. He'd be gone whenever the last phase comes by. The site's complete phase out at long last firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Our next open mic reader is Michael Palma.
Poem I'm going to read is from a forthcoming book called Local Colors. It's going to be published by Ava Muse. Thank you very much again, Alex. And it's actually the last poem in the book from the concluding section, which is called Engagements. And each of the poems in that section imitates the form of and in some way engages the content of a favorite poem of mine. This one has to do with W.H. Auden's ballad, As I Walked Out One Evening, which begins, as I walked out one evening, walking down Bristol Street, the crowds upon the pavement were fields of harvest wheat, and ends, it was late in the evening, the lovers, they were gone, the clocks had ceased their chiming, and the deep river ran on. So this poem is entitled, pardon me, it's entitled, As I Woke Up One Morning. I'm sorry, I'm hesitating because I'm not sure how I can call it up on the screen and stay in the meeting at the same, well, hold on, I think I've got it, exit full screen, here we go. Sorry for the awkwardness. Once again, as I woke up one morning. As I woke up one morning, here on Shady Lane, I listened to the moaning of a distant train. It was early in the morning, 2 hours before the sun, but though I was exhausted, I knew that sleep was done. Not ready for the day yet, I lay there in the bed, cut off from all distractions, confined inside my head. Always I'd accepted things just as they seem, as sleepers accept the broken logic of a dream. But striving and desire had dropped like leaves from trees, and in the cold, clear darkness, the thoughts that came were these. I'd often had the hubris to think that I was cursed, the beanbag of a smirking fate. And yet when things were worst, I never had gone hungry. I never had been cold or lacked a roof above me. I never had been told that things were not my business because I had been made without the right equipment or tinted the wrong shade. While millions bore existence in grinding misery, I'd nestled in my comfort and played with poetry. In self-inflicted troubles, I'd turned to many a friend, but in their times of need, I'd had my own affairs to tend. I'd thought myself a master of fine self-sacrifice. For love I'd lavished on myself, others paid the price. I'd looked at everybody with cold, appraising eyes, exempt from every flaw I saw, licensed to criticize. But now I lay and listened to the snicker of the clock, feeling so much smaller than those I used to mock. The train rolled through the valley along its destined track, pulling the freight through darkness, never turning back. It was early in the morning, 2 hours until 8. The day was not yet dawning, but it was late. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Our next mic reader is Meriam.
Hello, everyone. The nerve. I took a trip to death one day, a boat to carry all my pain. The captain said I wouldn't need to bring my shoes or coat, but I should lie here quietly till dead. The waves revolted every nerve. I stood and took my pain and wrecked it shore to shore, my inner artists weaving what they could. I didn't want to die. I wanted more of air and leaves, the loving wind, the crow shining her velvet feathers on my face. I told the captain that I wouldn't go and struggled through a fog to leave that place. But clouds and sea turned into hopeless rain. What little raft I had sank in the pain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meriam. The next reader is Pat Valdata.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be a little contrary today and read a prose poem. This was printed in the Valparaiso Poetry Review. Lost. When she saw the suitcase disappear behind black plastic flaps, she knew it would be lost. 1 week after her best friend since grade school, hairless and opiated, stopped gasping for air, she felt guilty about taking this long-planned cruise. Her errant luggage was a small, apt punishment. There was no afterlife. She knew her friend wouldn't mind one couple missing the memorial service. Still, she felt ashamed to celebrate their silver anniversary on the day her friend became gray ash. In Meriam, she stood staring at the rat-riddled Strasbourg wharf. After they toasted her friend and she wept in her husband's arms, a swan slipped along the silvered Rhine to their waterline window. The bird floated at the intersection of water and air, a boundary no swan could believe in. It peered into the cabin with jet eyes, droplets of silver running down its neck. Could it be a messenger, even though it was impossible that any product of combustion could have crossed the Atlantic that day? She was reminded of heraldic tinctures, a swan argent against a field azure. She thought of the promise of stained glass, but all she could be sure of was this river, this swan, this boat, this empty wine glass, all silver tarnishes. Her suitcase, having detoured inexplicably to Caracas, was at that very moment on its way to their next stop. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Pat.
Thanks.
Yeah. I am now delighted to introduce our second feature reader, Moira Egan. Moira Egan's most recent book is Amore e Morte, a bilingual new and selected poems from Edizioni Tlon in 2022. Her work has been published in journals and anthologies on 4 continents. With Damiano Abeni, she has translated into Italian poets including Ashbery, Strand, Simic, Hecht, and Charles Wright. Last year, she published David's Juggler, a selection of Franco Buffoni's recent poems. Moira has had fellowships at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, St. James Cavalier Center for Creativity in Malta, the Civitella Ranieri Center, the Rockefeller Foundation Bellagio Center, and the James Merrill House. She lives, teaches, and sometimes even writes in Rome. Welcome, Moira Egan.
Thank you. Thank you, Anton. And thank you, Anton and Wendy, for this invitation. And I'm delighted to be here among friends and poets whom I admire. And if you're thinking that this looks like an original painting by Rick Mullen, it is. Thank you, Rick. I love it. Often it's in front of me rather than behind me. But you know, tonight was a special occasion. So I'm going to read as much as I can of a very weird sonnet crown that I wrote at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. I'm going to set my timer and just blam through these sonnets and see what happens. I might skip one or two, so I'll tell you when I'm going to do that. So here we go. It's called The Furies. The women in the courtyard play with clay, the squishy earth worked smooth and glistening. They're sculpting hybrids, gorgons, sirens, sphinx. One fettles fine a mermaid's arms and tail. Her friend says, hey, those boobs, they're way too big, she'd sink. I say, no, she would float, which brings to mind an awful sexist joke about Mae West, which I refuse to say. Another asks, why is it always us, deformed, made monster, harpy, mythic bitch? They're satyrs, centaurs, brandishing huge dicks. Can you remind me what a harpy is? A shrieking bird, a woman's ugly visage. She'll take your wedding cake and shit on it. Persephone's and Hades' wedding cake must have been topped with pomegranate seeds and iced with lethe-colored buttercream. Imagine that you have to consummate this union born of taking what he takes, oblivious to struggles and your screams, oblivious to other plans and dreams. Imagine that in every US state and the law until the 1970s, if you can't rape your wife, whom can you rape? Allowed a man to take his wife, to seize and bruise and batter her, if he should please. Imagine how the verb to ravish might have gone from rape to filling with delight. Rapunzel, rampion of fright, the woebegone of barrenness, but did she wish to reproduce? Her slavish cravings in the night might show another wish, despite. The witch's realm, the garden rich, amenagogic herbs and such could cause the loss by firelight. The ivory tower prison where access is forbidden unless the code is broken. A pussy-grabbing president, the overturn of precedent, a vessel that is only meant. A Vestal virgin in her element, no images allowed, she tends the flame of hearth or heart or art, each day the same. She serves unswerving, goddess immanent, the sacrosanctifying immanent. The sympathetic muse observes her, pained. She sits or kneels or walks, complexion drained, perhaps a little tired of being patient. Sometimes she dreams of Vesta, asteroid, the third in size and brightest of the night. She knows the circumscription of her orbit, orbitofrontal cortex just annoyed. Perhaps she'll rapture out one final fight in time to bust a rupture in her habit. What was the woman doing with the tablet in her lap? Why did the archaeologists have to ask? Well, obvious, the voicelessness a given. Did she not write hymns and sonnets to sun and moon and blood and distant planets? Of course, you've heard the joke. Anonymous was woman born to take the piss. Her silly work, the critics piss upon it. My friend sent me an essay, Stamina, from Latin plural stamen in the sense of threads spun by the fates. And Heduana persisted, poet, priestess, ornament of heaven. My Lord, that which here has been created, no one has created before. No one's created quite like this before. She sits beside the gauzy window, lone, scrapes at her palate, scrapes down to the bone, examining her true self in the mirror. Her eyes are large and clear, confront the viewer. If these are windows to her soul, she owns the very elements around her, stone and fire, earth and air, and brilliant color. Who was she then? The origin of painting? You have to look a model in the face to apprehend the soul. You have to delve down deep for truth to tell that tale on canvas. You have to look your model in the face. No fakes, no kindness, truth a kind of grace. Self-portrait as the second of three graces. Self-portrait as a disembreasted saint. Self-portrait as the allegory of painting. Self-portrait as Picasso's nightmare faces. Self-portrait as the blue of autumn skies. Self-portrait as a poet at her desk whose ghosts surround her, anything but blessed. Self-portrait as a woman with no eyes. Self-portrait as the xanthophilic leaves. Self-portrait as Lachesis clad in black. Self-portrait as the adjunct assistant professor a month away from sleeping in her car. Self-portrait as bloodshot insomniac. Self-portrait as the one who only grieves. Another poet bites the dust. They grieve most openly and throatfully. He blurbed my second book. In faith, he never swerved. I have a different story. Please believe I mean no disrespect, but he, one evening, was asked to name some women poets whom he loved, admired. A silence, then a hem, a haw. His helpful friend tugged at his sleeve. While in this auditorium there sat a dozen noted women poets, eyes downcast in what? Anger, reflected shame? Well, Sappho, Dickinson, of course. And what's her name? I chose her book once for a prize. Jane, yes, I can't remember her name. And yes, it's plain, we must reclaim the names they hurtle at us. Vixen, Harridan, Virago, Harpy, Nag, Hag, Termagant, She-Devil, Fishwife, Hellcat, La Belle Dame sans merci, though I do wonder where's the shame in being merciless at times. Gorgon, Old Bag, Old Bat, Old Trout, Old Cow, Dragon. A bitch so mythic there's no one to blame, but maybe you. I learned another choice vocabulary word the other day. It's fawning, a response to complex trauma. We smile, we shrink, we charm, avoiding drama. Of course, my dear, it's never what you say, but I cannot unhear your tone of voice. Sometimes, my dear, it seems my very voice annoys you. What to do? Change timbre, pitch, intensity, stuck in your craw? My sitch, if hearing's given, listening's a choice that I don't think you choose. I take up space, or try to, anyway, discussion nixed. When my poor mouth I open, what's the fix that you propose? I'm all ears, you're all voice. Elective mute myself, electrocute myself, go glottal, velar, labiodental, go mental, head toward the river with stones in pockets? Oh, I don't think so. Whatever angle, straight, obtuse, acute, I'm out to take it back, Indian giver. It's hard to write a poem with a fever despite the precedence of history. That was precedence, sorry. It's hard to write a poem with a fever despite the precedence of history, of Plath, her out-of-body 103, or deathbed Keats, his final days a river of sweat and blood, hope whittled to a sliver. Oh, I can feel the cold earth upon me, the daisies growing over me. How blessed he was in Severn who outlived him. Our sweet friend died the early weeks of COVID. He'd just retired, wanted to be a poet and play guitar full time. What have we learned? No masks, no vax, logic and science turned to enemy. Their signs scream, it's my body, it's my choice. Ah, blissful, blessed irony. And this one I'm going to skip. Head bangs against the door, never enough to rise above the risible, to view beyond the visible, to clear the channels staticky, to slough the slaw of despond off, to learn to tough it out, the mire of miserable, the insult of invisible, Houdini out the existential cuffs. I know, bitch, right? Where's your gratitude? How far you think you'll get with this attitude? You think I'm going to go there with some platitude, and you'd be right. The irony of life is hardly anyone gets out alive, and bees are not returning to their hive. I found a dead bee on my bedroom floor the other day, a long way from the hive, a clear-cut apian case of failure to thrive. Poor bee, so glad I didn't step on her. At least, not least, miraculous to remember that even when they're dead, they have the sting. The venom stays there. Let me finish the poem. The venom stays there, still a nasty thing. I made a careful tissue coffin for her and carried her outside. The wind picked up, the clouds fast forwarded from white to gray. My neighbor called across the fence, "Hey, join us. We're dancing to ward off the hurricane. It's never gonna work, but what the fuck? Us women in the garden, feet of clay." Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next open mic reader is Zara. Raab.
Thanks, Anton. I'm going to read a poem called Porpoise Clock. It's about a clock in Cambridge University, an inventive clock that uses the figure of a grasshopper in gold and steel to provide the escapement for the movement of the clock, if you know how these old clocks would work. And so this grasshopper goes around clutching at the gears that makes the clock move. And the clock is actually only on accurate time, I think every 5 minutes, but it was quite an unusual design, and various inventors were involved. And here it is. This is the famous Corpus clock, marking the time circling round in hours untouched by hands. Quick or slow, the minutes pass. See them glow as light resolves in slender wands. More quickly, seconds fly, flashing in rims of light, fluorescent, circling round in bands. A simple plucking motion turns the wheel. The insect there will nod his head and strum. A blade, it's grass, it's gold, or hammered steel. It's time itself. The beast will now consume. As inexorably the seconds peel free of now. It is the common doom. Catch, release. Time here is on a hinge. The locust must forever eat and run for whole centuries. Let gold be singed and hammered steel fracture. Still, time will spin. Inaudibly to me one day quite soon, for I'm a gobbet too. Time will consume.
Thank you very much, Zara. Thank you. Next reader is Harvey Soss.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good, okay. This is called, and it's non-autobiographical. Let there be cake to commemorate the receipt of your 6th sobriety coin. The word is spoken in unison, and the word is good. With all the fervency of an amen corner, the meeting room shakes with shared confessions. Raised voices of a membership varied as flea market stalls, rattling floorboards in the nave above. With you singled out to hub a circle of chairs in the sub-basement, it being your day, and all praise to you for having given your alcohol codependency the bum's rush, a colonic scrub. Today we celebrate another of your AA rebirth days, the abstinent, having schmoozed with more spirits than any medium on the psychic's hotline. Toast your continued success with non-alcoholic beverages, having slammed the brakes on drinking and driving, on drinking and almost anything. You seek out some quiet spot in this old stone church from which to call a cab, rap sheet a kite's tail of DWI convictions behind you now. Slipping into the sacristy, you shrug an insistent simian off your back, chimp of a habit, disfiguring his Quasimodo's hump. As your closest living relative, it reminds you of shared times busking for refreshment in the subway, of how far you've come since you scratched a game of tic-tac-toe on the drunk tank's wall, your nail clippers having somehow evaded a pat down. One of the many Kilroy was here moments you recall. By your 6th coin, you find your thoughts practically hoochless, no longer enchanted by the bewitchments of familiar spirits, Glenfiddich and Jack Daniels Black, chasing the promise of transubstantiation from barroom to ballroom. Alcoholics Anonymous, the lens through which you see yourself with eyes swept clean of cataracts. After years of pub crawling, able to saunter out of a power lunch without fear of falling. A plum-colored coin in your palm signals your 9 months pilgrim's progress, marking the end of self-control's gestational period, an important step forward in a 12-step program. A slice of cake with its frosting of congratulations welcomes you to the ranks of the upright, relieved of the need to steady yourself by grabbing a six-pack, putting paid to line dancing nights when you could barely outperform your shadow. You turn a Van Gogh's missing ear to the solicitations of a cold beer, the bronze token awarded for 1 year alcohol-free, approaching like Venus on the half shell in the guise of a Shirley Temple. Confident that new leather smell of sobriety will attract her to you. Running a gauntlet of pats on the back, spring water your tete-a-tete drink of choice, high-stepping with all the lightness of being of Jung's genie sprung from the bottle. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Our next reader is Shane O'Handon.
Hello. I was in Ukraine about a month ago and wrote this. 1 year anniversary of the invasion. Rich black soil under wind-slapped thrushes. Salve Ukraini, the gas pumper says. Left behind dogs packed together in an open field, searching for suppressed instincts near a farm town with a cream soda Orthodox church where World War II looking steel X's line the road, ready. There is a tank covered with the branches of fir trees. There's an Elon Musk Starlink satellite system near some geese. Vaping in front of the resilience hut, they debate where the missile landed that just missed the primary school. Imagine a kickball rolling forever. We watch a silent video of bombs falling daintily from above. It's the first time I haven't felt hated in Europe for being Americano. A fight breaks out on a street without power when a man is heard speaking Russian. Infrastructure attacks are great for stargazing. Tinder lives on even under air sirens and other bomb shelter humor. The background photo on the iPhone of our driver with black eyebrows is an anti-aircraft missile system. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Shane. Thank you for sharing that. Our next and last open mic reader is Chris O'Carroll.
Well, thank you, Anton. Nobody who read today is an easy act to follow, and I have to follow all of them. Thank you. We all know that a drag performance is being widely demonized and outlawed throughout red state America. And I'm starting to think that all straight male poets should take a cue from the straight male rock musicians who have begun wearing dresses and wigs on stage just to express solidarity with brother and sister performers. I could wear a white dress and say it was an Emily Dickinson homage. I would look pretty good in a red wig. I could say it was Edna St. Vincent Millay. Poetry gives us lots of possibilities to play with, but I haven't put that act together yet. So all I have for you today is a short poem about my new favorite drag queen, Rhonda Santos. I'm Florida's hottest performer, Rhonda Santos, the drag queen by name. My bra, stuffed with lies about history, makes me fascism's flashiest dame. By grooming the youth in our classrooms to know who Americans hate, I will make every state in the nation a red, white, and anti-woke state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Well, this concludes our April Carmine Street Matrix reading. And please, thank you again. Please unmute yourselves so we can give one more round of applause to our feature readers and our excellent open mic participants. Great to see everyone.
Hey, poets, what a dynamite reading.
Incredible,
Really.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anton. Thank you.
And
Thank you,
please-
Anton.
Please join us again
Thank you.
in May.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Who's on in May?
May 7th.
Who?
We're going to be featuring Bruce Bond, Annie Finch, and Luke Stromberg.
Yay.
Yay.
That'll be fun too.
Will be good. Thank you so much.
Chris, my stomach hurts from laughing.
That's the effect I hope to have on most audiences.
Laughing, crying, laughing, but
Thank you, Chris.